It's now time to change the oil on the project car. And what we're going to do for our oil change is use this filter here. It's Pro Select 27356, and it takes 5W30 motor oil. This is a Napa motor oil. It takes 3.4 quarts in this car, so I bought 4 of these. So the first thing that we're going to do, make sure our parking brake is on. However, our rear wheels are both chalked, and I already slid the jack into the front, and I have 2 jack stands ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is lift up the car and throw the Alright, I checked the oil using this dipstick a while ago. The oil looked fine. The last time an oil change was done on this vehicle was about 3 months ago, so I'm not too worried about it. It's a little overfilled, so it's a good thing that we're removing the oil that's there. Here's the oil cap right here. It says 5W20 on it, which is great because that's what we have. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up this here to let it breathe, so that way when we open up the drain plug at the bottom of the engine, the fluid will flow out. I already turned the car on, let it run a little bit, got the engine a little warm, so that way the oil will flow a little bit smoother. Now underneath the vehicle, this being the front of the vehicle, that being towards the rear of the vehicle, and as we move over we find a wet oil pan, either because of the leak that we fixed up at the top, or this drain bolt here is actually possibly leaking as well, right at the back of the oil pan. So we're going to remove this bolt. It's an 18 millimeter. When we do, be careful that it doesn't project rearward, so I've positioned my bucket accordingly, so if it does drip out, it'll fall in, but if it shoots out, it will fall also into the bucket. And further up the engine on the back side, that white thing up there, that looks like the oil filter, so we have to use a special oil filter wrench, similar to something that looks like this, so we can ratchet around the oil filter up there and replace it. So first we're going to drain the oil out right here, then we're going to remove the oil filter up there. So I removed the oil drain bolt. When I first put it, it almost missed the bucket on that side. It was a nice flowing stream out there. It's now still streaming, but it's just kind of a thin, small stream right now, if you can sort of see it right there. And it's almost coming rearward now as it kind of dribbles out, comes around the oil pan. When it comes to a very, very slow drip, I'm going to reinstall the drain bolt, then I'll get at the oil filter. But when I install the drain bolt, I'm going to use a torque wrench. This vehicle calls for 29 foot-pounds of torque on the drain bolt. The drain bolt itself looks just like this. Put it back in right exactly where we found it. Take out the oil filter. You unscrew it by literally clamping around it with your oil filter wrench. And when you twist it, the entire thing spins off, and there's threads that hold it in place kind of right in there. Coincidentally, the oil filter that was previously used by the previous owner and mechanic happens to match the exact same one that we're replacing it with. Before we install the new one, we're going to take a little bit of oil from our old one and just apply some oil around this rubber seal, just to make sure that it's lubricated before we install it. So I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to screw this back in to the car. New filter, oil filter was put on hand tight or wrist tight. I'm now going to refill at the top of the engine right here. I believe it's 3.4 quarts. I got 4 quarts, so I'll put in the first 3, and then the 4th one I'll put in some more measure. When I feel like I'm right there, I'm going to turn the car on, run it a little bit, check the oil again, and make sure we don't overfill. Keep it in that sweet spot between min and max, but towards the max fill line on the dipstick. So this is the first liter I'm going to put in I'm going to try to do it carefully without a funnel. Hopefully it goes well. Nice and easy. Notice that I have the bottle turned on its side, not on the long side, so that way air can fill in the jug of oil as fast as the oil is leaving, so we don't get bubbles and it squirts off everywhere. So now that we have everything filled up, take out the dipstick, clean off the end with a rag, reinsert it all the way so it seats, pull it out again, and have a look, and we see it's right at the max fill dot. So we know we were good. We're going to run the car for a little bit, check for leaks, and then double check that the level is still good. And then we're done our oil change. All we're going to do is put our cap back on. So I just ran the engine a little bit, let it cool off. After I ran it, rechecked the dipstick. The oil level dropped a little bit, but it's still within the min and max. I think the reason why is because the oil filter needed to be filled with oil as well. However, now that that's the case, I just topped up the oil just a tad more, refilled it to the max line, and should be good. Again, checking underneath, making sure that there's no leaks, and I'll continue to monitor the situation there. So the oil filter and the 4 quarts of engine oil came to a total of $27, taxes included, and my running total for the project car is now at $571. Once you're done, remove your jack stands, then remove your jack, slide out all the dirty oil, and I used a filter and I poured the dirty oil back into the containers. I'm going to cap them and then take them to a recycle center.